Good afternoon and welcome to the Her Hoop Stats podcast. I am Brittany Carper, joined today for the first time together by Coach Helen Williams.
Yay, we haven't
my
worked together. We're the only two.
I know it's always exciting when you get a new face to kind of talk and chop up hoops with. So, and we certainly have some of that on tap today. Last night was game 3 in Phoenix. And I think the shot heard round the world by four-time MVP Asia Wilson is obviously the headline of that game, where the Aces escape with a 90-88 victory in Phoenix, going up 3-0 in the series. So Coach, just kind of give us your takeaways from the game, and then we can kind of delve into, some talking points from there.
Yeah, I mean, it was exciting, and I was on a group text the whole time when all the stuff was going on, and at the end, trying to figure out who was going to get the ball. And I got to give Becky Hammond a lot of credit for this season. If it ends up that they win the whole thing, I think this is probably her hardest one, and her best coaching job, given all the adversity and things that were going on this year. So it was very, very exciting. There was this great shot of her hitting the shot, and you could just see the crowd behind the basket just slump, like, oh my god, like we had it. And the ball's like just poetic, just rolling around in the rim. And so yeah, it was an exciting game. I was obviously impressed with Jewel Lloyd in the beginning. Like, she has played really well in this series, and I don't want to say she carried them, but she helped them, in that first quarter, get off to a great start. And then Jackie Young, just whatever they needed. If it was scoring, she gave it to them in a timely manner. She had 9 assists, if that's what they needed for her to do. And then, I mean, obviously Asia, with her, she has exquisite footwork, and Chelsea Gray has exquisite court vision. So it was an exciting game to watch, and I know a lot of people watched that game. I know the ratings were just ridiculous.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see the numbers for games 2 and 3 after they came out after game 1 and said that it was the most watched finals game since the inaugural season. And so what we always talk about and know on this podcast is that the eyes and the ears are listening and watching. And so that was certainly exciting to see for the league. Back to the game, to start off, the Aces went kind of a box and one on Carper to start the game. And I thought that's been really interesting. In every single game of this series, Becky Hammond, I think, has kind of had the upper hand in the coaching, just in terms of the adjustments that she has made, and specifically from game to game. And I don't even know necessarily that they needed to start in the box and one, but what I did like about that is in both of the first 2 games, Carper had really big first halves. And so to start the game on that box and one, just talk about kind of taking her out of the mix in that first half, and kind of what you might see into game 4. And conversely, we haven't seen a whole lot of adjustments on the side of the Mercury, and what could they do?
Yeah, I think the thing that Becky Hammond has done is she has just kept Phoenix just off guard. Like, they're not really sure what's coming, so it's kind of hard to prepare. And so she's been playing chess, as I've said, the whole series, and I think that is really difficult for Phoenix. Phoenix, I think, just has to do a better job of adjusting to officiating. Like, normally they're the ones that are allowed to be handsy, and Vegas, this entire series, they have been as handsy as the officials will allow. They've been physical. They've taken space away from Alyssa Thomas, and so they've really struggled with that. And their bench has not been able to pull them out of that. I think DeWanna Bonner obviously had a great game last night, but the rest of the bench hasn't been able to pull them out of that. And I think that's really going to start on their defense. I mean, we always say this, and it's a cliche, but it is so true. You got to defend if you want to win a championship. You got to defend if you want an opportunity to rebound. And Becky's been putting that 4-out one in, and it's really hard to double Asia because she's got 4 people out there that can shoot, sometimes with that small lineup, and so it's been really difficult for them.
Yeah, and you're talking about the shooting. The Aces made a finals record 9 first half three-pointers. And I know at the halftime coming out of the break, Coach Nate Tibbetts said 7 of those were uncontested. And I think a lot of that was what you touched on, though, the defensive effort by the Aces and being able to get stops and then get out in transition and run and find their shooters. And then, like you said, playing off of Asia Wilson in the post. Jewel Lloyd had 4 first half three-pointers. And then I think the big switch, obviously, in the second half, especially that third quarter, the Mercury were looking to take away the 3-point line, right? And so what did you see? The Aces getting downhill, giving the ball to Asia Wilson, getting the Mercury in foul trouble. They were in the bonus early in that quarter. I think it ended up I had Aces were 13 of 14 from the free throw line, and then Phoenix was only 4 of 8. So to me, that was the big separator in the aggressor in that third quarter there. And I just think that's been, what we touched on, the chess game going on, right? Like the Aces have that experience. They understand kind of what to do with the whistle and how to adjust. How do you think, you talked about the bench. Sammy Whitcomb has been missing really since that big 3-pointer she made to tie Minnesota in that series. I think she's like 3 for, I want to say maybe 25 or 26 since then. Do you think maybe they go further down the bench in game 4, or what do you kind of think the Mercury might try to do?
I I would start Dewana Bonner. I mean, she is long and she can move laterally, so defensively. She does give Asia some problems. She gives her some pause with her length on her, and I would just start her. I mean, what do you have to lose? And then go from there. His bench has been the rotation has been very short and unproductive, and so I think she gives them an opportunity right away. So I would start her, and then go from there. You can put Natasha Mack in there, to defend for a few minutes if you need to give Dewana Bonner a rest. But they're going to have to defend so that they can get out in transition, so they can get those shots that they want. I think that Vegas has this for the last 3 games. They've had short periods of time where they have not focused and they've allowed Phoenix to get downhill and to spray the ball out, and that's why they erase those deficits, and they end up making it a close game. And so for them, that's how they want to play. They want to get the ball out in transition. They want to go downhill, and the only way to do that is to defend and to get rebounds. And then I would also crash the boards a little bit harder if you offensively, at one more person, if you were Phoenix, to try to give yourself more opportunities. I think they might have had like 7 or 8 offensive rebounds last night, but they need more because they need more opportunities.
Yeah, and I think that's something the Aces have done really well, is giving themselves some second chance opportunities. Most notably, Jewel Lloyd and Alyssa Smith have been very active on the offensive boards. You talked about getting into the paint is the key to Phoenix's success, and really, I don't want to go without mentioning prayers up for Satu Sabali. Really hoping
Absolutely.
that everything is all right. We haven't had an update on her condition, but just a really nasty play that took place in an accidental thing that happens in the game of basketball. But I just definitely wanted to say we're thinking well, wishing her well. But in a situation they might be without her probably in game 4. You saw Carper go on that individual 11-0 run when she went out, but the success of that was getting downhill into the paint. And I think what I've noticed, and I'm sure you have as well, when Phoenix struggles on the offensive end, they don't get that paint touch. They don't get the ball reversal. They've seemed to gone away a little bit too of that little point guard screen that we saw so much of in the first half of these playoffs. And so, do you think they go back to that, or kind of what do you see as more success besides just being able to get out and run in transition?
Yeah, I think excuse me, part of the problem is that when they were doing that, I thought Vegas was doing a really good job of cutting the angles off and not letting them get downhill from that. And so that's a struggle. And so for me, again, start Dewana Bonner because she can be a mismatch inside. She can shoot threes, but also I would try to get Copper some more opportunities early because in the very first game they had, she just went nuts.
Mhm.
And so, run her off some more screens, some pin downs, have somebody chasing her. She was not very active until she took that free throw for Satu Sabli, and I'm saying to myself, okay, now she's at least seen the ball go through the hoop. Let's see what she does. And so then she just went on a heater. So I'll definitely try to get her some more opportunities, and obviously, work with two-person game with her, with Alyssa Thomas.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And then, kind of the last thing I wanted to touch on with the game is the end game situations and the decisions by the coaches. Nate Tibbetts, I know after game one, was asked about not taking the timeout with 13 seconds left. They did not get a great look at the basket. They found themselves in a similar position last night. Obviously, not with, it was a tie game. The Mercury had the ball. They come down. He was asked post game about it. He said he liked the matchup with Gustafson in the game, and so that's why he did not call the timeout. He wanted to try to take advantage of her being in there. In hindsight, would you have called timeout? What do you think about the look they got? It was kind of a driving layup by Alyssa Thomas over Gustafson, but I think if I was looking at it, I was kind of hoping they would try that little point guard screen again where she had more of a size advantage and could really either muscle her way in or kick for an open three.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things. If it works, you made the right decision. If it doesn't, you didn't. But I'm with him in terms of Megan Gustafson because she could not guard Dewana Bonner. It's very difficult for her to guard somebody off the dribble, and so they kept taking her. And I'm like, why is she in there? I'm coaching and I'm yelling at the screen. I'm like, why is Megan Gustafson in there? And I get it because their bench they had foul trouble, right? So I understand that. But I would have taken that approach too because she kept getting beat off the dribble, and that's what they want. She could not guard Dewana Bonner. She could not guard Alyssa Thomas. And if you can get in there, then you can spray the ball out, for a 3-point shot. So um, that just it goes to show you the experience. On one side, there's Becky Hammond, who's won 2 championships, been in those situations before, has seen what works, what doesn't work. You have the core for Vegas, who's won a championship, and then you bring in Dana Evans, who won a championship with Chicago. You bring in Jewel Lloyd, who's won championships with Seattle. So they don't get rattled when the game gets close. They execute when the game gets close, and then you've got Phoenix, who first of all, nobody expected them to be there. So kudos to them for being there. And I guarantee you, tomorrow is not going to be easy. If Vegas wins, it's going to be scrappy. Let's just say.
Yeah,
But there is something to be said for that experience in coaches where you've been in those situations before. You know how to handle those situations. You know how to handle your players.
definitely, and you could see that when, Vegas got the rebound, they brought it up into the front court. Jackie Young kinda starts heading to the basket, and I think Becky Hammon could see Alyssa Thomas was coming over to help, and it was not gonna end in the way she wanted it to, and so she calls the time up, which sets up that last, possession for the Aces. Now, when you're watching that in hindsight, Megan Gustafson is still in the game, and Alyssa Thomas is guarding her. They set that little, cross down screen. Asia pops to the elbow. I'm thinking if there's one player you're not going to let catch in that area, that would probably be Asia Wilson, right? And I know again you're looking back hindsight, but if you're the coach there, what are you doing differently in that situation? Besides the fact Asia Wilson hit an incredible shot, I'll touch on that more. But if you had Gustafson in the game still on the offensive end for the Aces, and you're the defensive side of that, what are you doing different in that situation?
On defense,
Yes.
I mean, I wouldn't do anything different. I mean, the ball's going to go to Asia. I mean, that's your money player, and you live and die with that. If I have to choose between the two, I'm gonna let Megan Gustafson shoot that ball. But when Asia got that ball, it wasn't. It was a black hole. It was not coming out. and she was going to take that shot, and she should have taken that shot, make her miss. It's her shot to take. That's your, that's your MVP. So I don't think that I would have done anything different. I mean, she had two people on her. They were right there. It was decent defense. It was just a much better shot. And again, everything's they're going to go back and they're going to look at the film and think, well, maybe we should have done this or maybe we should have done that. But in the heat of the game, that's the player who has the ball, and there's what 0.3 seconds or whatever was left. Like you're gonna be like beast of the honey because you don't want her to make that shot. So I don't think I would have done anything different, really.
Yeah, and I think that's what if she gets the catch there, you live with whatever happens, whether it's offense or defense. I thought, they tried to guard it as best they could, but that shot by Asia Wilson is obviously just one that you see so many greats and goats out there that have the shot, right? Michael Jordan over the Utah Jazz. You probably saw today that kind of side by side of them both with those shots. And just talk about her legacy and, kind of the involvement of her, and especially just the dominance that she's had in this run, especially in this series.
Yeah, I don't. I think as much as possible, she had a chip on her shoulder, and you're thinking, well, she's won, MVP, four times. How can she have a chip on her shoulder? But I think the entire Vegas team had a chip on their shoulder because everyone counted them out. Right? They lost. I don't know how many games was it? 12 in a row, 13 in a row, or whatever. And they're like 24 and something since then. But I just think that her legacy is that she wants to do more. She wants to be the greatest women's basketball player ever, and she works at it every year. She gets better. She worked on her footwork this year. It's obvious. 2 years ago, she worked on her conditioning with making sure that she could play for 40 minutes a game for the whole season. And so she is always trying to figure out some way to get better. And if they win tomorrow, that's 4 championships in 8 years for her. Half her time in the WNBA, she's won championships. Half her time in the WNBA, she's won MVP, and she just continues to rewrite the record book, scoring the most points in the postseason. And so her legacy to me is that she's never satisfied. She wants to do more. She wants to get better.
Yeah, and I think at this point we're running out of ways to describe
I,
her
I
and her
know.
and her game because you're right. Like she has just elevated every single year. She finds a way to get better, and I think this year especially, she's elevated the play of her teammates. I think you've seen all the stories come out when they were 14 and 14 and how she challenged them. Texting Chelsea Gray, "I have more assists than you," like,
Yep.
and that's a sign of obviously just a great player that wants everything that's in front of her and still in the prime of her career. And I guess the last thing too, you touched on it, but the experience factor of the aces is so pivotal. And I think Nate Tibbetts touched on this in his post game presser as well, just that the Mercury don't have the experience of playing together in moments like that. So in game 4 on the road, you said it's going to be a battle, but what do you see as, kind of the big keys, one maybe from each team, for them to come out on top?
Well, the key for Vegas is not to have those periods where they are not aligned defensively, where they allow Phoenix to get into the lane and spray the ball. And it's not like it's for long periods of time, right? Real clock time. It might be 3, maybe 4 minutes, but they've got to make sure that and I will say this: they bend, but they don't break, and that's the experience that the championship experience that they have, the chemistry that they have, the execution. They bend, but they don't break. But you can't keep leaving it to chance. You've got to like make sure that they don't have those periods where they're allowed to get back in the game. You work so hard to build what was a 17-point lead,
Hmm.
and then you let them back in within a couple of minutes. You cannot do that because Phoenix is going to push claw. They're going to beat the crap out of of Vegas as much as the officials are going to allow them to be physical. They're going to try to continue to get downhill. So that to me is and don't let Asia go 4 or 5 minutes without scoring. Like touch the ball every single time down. So those two things I think for them, and then for Phoenix, their bench has to come to play. And I think they have to try to get offense from defense. And if I were them, I'm going to be as physical I can with everybody that I can, as much as the officials will let me. I'm not saying play dirty by any stretch of the imagination, but however physical they let us be, that's what we're going to do. We're going to get every 50-50 ball. We're going to crash the boards. We're going to get more opportunities from offensive rebounds. And we're going to make it so that we can get downhill, we can spray out, and have our Sammy Whitcomb's got to hit a couple threes. They've got to get Copper going. And, you know, they got to find a way for Alyssa Thomas to continue to be effective as a facilitator.
Yeah, I love all of those from both sides of it. I know game 4 will be another great matchup between these two teams. Mercury with their backs against the wall. So definitely looking forward to that. Another piece of news from the league yesterday was the all defensive teams, first team. So I just kind
Finally,
of wanted,
right?
yeah,
Finally.
yeah, a few days late. It's not as if anything else has been going on, you
No,
know.
nothing else
Uh,
was going on.
yeah. But I just wanted to go through those and just kind of get your thoughts on both of them and maybe some players you thought that should have had an opportunity to make them. So, first team, we had Nafisa Collier, Alana Smith, Alyssa Thomas, or did I read that right? Yes. Alyssa Thomas, Gabby Williams, Asia Wilson. Second team, Leah Boston, Veronica Burton, Ryan Howard, Brianna Stewart, and I'm missing one. I don't think I wrote it down. Ezzy Megabor. So, kind of, what are your thoughts on the first and second team? And then, who did you think maybe should have had an opportunity to make it that did not show up there yesterday?
Well, my first thought was, do they think people under 5'11" don't play defense? I mean, it's yeah, Veronica Burton, I think, is the smallest, the only one under 5'10", 5'11" that's on the team. Like, short people don't play defense either. But yeah, I thought, I mean, for the most part, that's fine. I thought maybe Jordan Cannon, I thought she did a really good job defensively this year. I thought Jewel Lloyd, which you're seeing right now, should have had a look. And then Dejanay Carrington, obviously, but she got hurt, so I don't know if that had something to do with it either. But I thought those three could just have easily been, on the second team or whatever, on the second all defensive team as well.
Yeah, I think sometimes with defense, it's a little hard because what we might identify as good defenders, maybe statistically, aren't having the numbers, right? So when you see, like you said, is there a height requirement? Most of those are because they have a lot of blocks, right? And or
You're right.
you know. And so I think sometimes that is a little bit tricky to identify those things, or you have a higher in steal number, okay, but sometimes on ball defenders you're not picking the pockets of the ball handler, right? You're just creating chaos out top, which makes it really hard then to play on the offensive end of the court. And so I do echo that. I think sometimes it is harder to identify better guard defenders because you might not necessarily have the statistics to back that up.
Yeah, and I think you and I are coaches, so we're going to look for those kinds of things. I don't know who's voting on the all defensive team, so I think again, and I've said this about the MVP and stuff. It's eye candy, the stats, the blocks, eye candy, and so I can understand that, and I really have no problem with the two teams at all. But it's just unfortunate that some people who do a really good job don't get that recognition.
Yeah, and I think there were certainly some others. I know the Sun were kind of maybe Sanaya Rivers. They thought she had a chance,
Yes,
which
yep,
as a rookie, she definitely had an impact on the defensive side of the ball for them. So I do think it's sometimes in the eye of the beholder. And if you aren't
yeah.
into the nuances of the game or understanding necessarily what's being asked of you on the defensive end, you might not be able to identify that as well as just looking at, oh, this person has, X amount of blocks or X amount of steals. So they automatically get a vote. I think the last thing we're waiting on is all WNBA WNBA first and second team. If I'm right, maybe BMAC could correct me, but I think that was possibly out this week as well. But any other thoughts on the finals, or you wanted to say,
Oh,
Coach? Oh,
BMAX got a news alert.
I need to have a little jingle or something every time I
yeah.
I
pop
know
on
when you
here.
come in.
Yes.
Ding, ding, ding.
So um, we don't have an all WBA team yet,
Okay.
but it was just announced Satu Sabale will miss Game 4 with a concussion.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Well, at least that's all it was. I'm not saying that's not great, but at least it wasn't anything worse than that because it looked pretty bad. Yeah, so that's good that it wasn't more than that. But that's unfortunate for Phoenix, and yeah, because she I thought did a great job using. They did a great job of her finally using her size as a mismatch. They didn't do that the first two games, and so they're going to miss that for sure. Which now makes me think even more they're going to start DeWanna Bonner.
Yeah, definitely a huge loss for the Mercury going into game 4. They will have to rally around that fact to try to keep their championship hopes alive. But like you said, definitely happy that it was not anything more severe on Satu Sabali's front. And I know that she's had a concussion before. So with the way the game is and as physical as it is now, you just can't take those risks. And so, wishing her well in her recovery. Any other thoughts on her missing that game, or kind of what the Mercury might do
Yeah,
going forward?
I could see Kat Westbell getting more opportunity because she can stretch the floor. The only problem with her is like who's she going to guard, but you have to make a decision for Phoenix. I mean, you just your bench you don't have a whole lot of two-way players, and so it's a bit one-dimensional in terms of who you bring in and why you bring them in. So he's really going to have to do some shuffling, but I would expect her to get a little bit more time because they need some offense, and then I would think that that McConney would be more aggressive offensively. I didn't think she was as aggressive as she was in game 2. Was it game 1 or 2? I can't remember. Very aggressive, off the dribble. I would expect her to do more of that tomorrow.
I think the Mercury will look to step up, of course, from everyone with their backs against the wall. And like we've seen all playoffs, when someone has gone down, that team has kind of answered the bell. Whether they make it to the next game, we'll see. But I know that they will fight and claw just like they have all these playoffs. So that's it for us today. Thank you for joining us. You can catch Coach Helen Williams on most social platforms, I believe, Coach. Is that correct?
Yep, for sure.
Blue Sky, Instagram, Eggs. Definitely give us a listen wherever you find your podcast. Like, listen, review, subscribe to us. We come at you daily. So thank you and enjoy, the pod tomorrow in game 4.